He humiliated his poor, pregnant ex, unaware she was married to a ruthless Korean mafia boss. They say you can't outrun your past. But they never mention what happens when your past runs straight into your future, and your future has an army. The ornament shattered at Kessia Rashid's feet on Christmas Eve, and for a moment, she thought about running. Just turning around in Eden Crown Galleria's marble halls and disappearing into the holiday crowd before Omari Ousmane could say another word, before the phones could rise, before the judgment could solidify into something permanent and viral. But 7 months pregnant, running wasn't an option. Neither was dignity, apparently. Kessia's breath caught. Not here. Not today. But Omari Ousmane was already closing the distance between them, his new designer loafers crunching through the wreckage he'd created. He looked exactly like the man he'd always wanted to be. Tailored suit hugging his frame, confidence borrowed from his fiancée's family money, a smile that suggested he'd finally escaped his past. Except his past was standing right in front of him. Pregnant. Alone. Vulnerable. "I should have known you'd end up like this," Omari announced, his voice carrying through the atrium like a verdict. "Pregnant. No ring. Shopping where you clearly don't belong." He gestured broadly at her, at the Galleria's soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers, as if the space itself rejected her presence. "Did you really think you could parade that bastard child around and no one would say anything?" The murmurs began immediately. Sympathetic, pitying, curious. Kessia's knees weakened. She wasn't here to shop. She was meeting her sister. But explanations meant nothing now. To every watching eye, she was exactly what Omari said she was. A cautionary tale in a royal blue dress, her carefully styled hair already escaping its pins, her swollen belly a billboard of poor choices. "You always wanted the soft life," Omari continued, stepping closer. His new fiancée clinging to his arm with the grip of someone who sensed danger but couldn't look away. "Guess reality caught up with you." Kessia's vision blurred. 7 months pregnant. No visible support. No protection. Just a woman being systematically destroyed in the most expensive mall in the city while hundreds watched and recorded. Her fingers trembled as they found her phone in her bag. She didn't want to make this call. Hadn't wanted to need this. Hadn't wanted to pull her husband into the ugliness of her past. But her thumb moved anyway, muscle memory overriding pride, finding the contact she'd programmed for emergencies she'd prayed would never come. Byung-chul. The line connected before the first ring finished. She couldn't explain, couldn't form words past the humiliation choking her throat. "Eden Crown," she whispered. "He's." The call ended. Omari laughed when he saw her lower the phone. "Calling for backup? Who's going to save you, Kessia?" "Another one of your pity friends." 43 seconds passed. The holiday music continued. Omari continued gloating. His fiancée continued recording. The crowd continued whispering. And Kessia remained standing there, cradling her belly, bleeding humiliation onto marble that reflected 10,000 Christmas lights. Then the air changed. It started as a sound footsteps, synchronized and deliberate, moving through the east wing of the Galleria with the precision of a military formation. The holiday shoppers turned first, confusion rippling through the crowd like wind through wheat. Then came the murmurs, spreading outward in waves. Kessia looked up through her tears and saw them. 6 men in black suits. No mall security badges. No festive cheer. Just tailored darkness cutting through the Christmas chaos with surgical intent. They moved in perfect formation, parting the crowd without a word, their presence alone commanding space. And at the center walked Byung-chul, tall, immaculate, expressionless. He was exactly as he always was, dark hair swept back from sharp features, his face carved from stone, his eyes holding the kind of calm that made dangerous men look away. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's cars, moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything, and carried himself like violence was a language he spoke fluently but chose to keep silent. Until he chose otherwise. Omari didn't notice immediately. He was too busy enjoying his moment, too drunk on power and his fiancée's validation. But she noticed. Her phone lowered, her face drained of color. "Omari," she whispered, tugging his sleeve. Omari, we need to go. Why would we? He turned. The words died in his throat. Byung-chul stopped exactly 3 feet away. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. His presence alone sucked the oxygen from the atrium, transformed the festive galleria into a vacuum where only his will existed. One of his men moved forward, a silent question in his posture, but Byung-chul raised one hand. A single gesture. Wait. His dark eyes finally left Omari and dropped to Kessia. The shift in his expression was microscopic, a hairline fracture in marble, but she saw it. Concern. Fury. Something deeper that she'd spent 7 months trying to understand. Are you hurt? He asked her, his voice soft in a way that made the question feel like an offering, not a command. I'm okay, Kessia lied, her voice barely audible. Byung-chul's jaw tightened. The fracture became a canyon. He turned his attention to Omari. You, he said quietly, dropped glass near my wife. The silence that followed was absolute. The silence that followed was absolute. You're what? Omari's voice cracked on the second word, his confidence fracturing like the ornaments he'd thrown. Byung-chul didn't repeat himself. Didn't need to. He simply stood there, 3 feet of charged space between them, and waited. The way apex predators wait, patient, certain, inevitable. His fiancée released Omari's arm. Small movement. Enormous consequences. That's impossible. Omari tried again, forcing a laugh that came out strangled. She's nobody. Finish that sentence, Byung-chul interrupted softly. And I will finish you. The temperature in the atrium dropped 10 degrees. Omari's mouth opened, closed. His eyes darted to the crowd, seeking allies, finding only phones and horrified fascination. You're bluffing. I know who owns this place. I know. Byung-chul raised one hand. Instantly, one of his men stepped forward, extending a tablet. Byung-chul didn't take it, didn't even glance at it. He kept his dark eyes locked on Omari while his man turned the screen toward the crowd. Marriage documents appeared, notarized, translated, official seals visible even from a distance. Eden Crown Galleria, Byung-chul said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the atrium, was acquired 8 months ago through a private consortium I control. He paused, his gaze flickering briefly to Kessia's belly. Shortly after my wife informed me she was pregnant. The murmurs erupted. Phones shifted angles. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Omari's face cycled through denial, confusion, dawning horror. No, that's the Hartwell Group owns. Owned, Byung-chul corrected. Past tense. I purchased their controlling interest in February. The transfer was finalized in March. You're currently standing in my property, harassing my wife, while being recorded by my security system. As if on cue, another of his men produced a second tablet. Live surveillance footage played. Multiple angles of Omari throwing ornaments, advancing on Kessia, threatening her. Crystal clear. Time-stamped. Damning. You assaulted her, Byung-chul continued, his tone conversational, almost bored. Verbally, publicly, in front of witnesses. That footage is already with my legal team. But I'm a reasonable man. He tilted his head slightly. Apologize to her. Now, then leave. I'm not. You can't just, Omari sputtered. Byung-chul took one step forward. Just one. Omari stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own expensive shoes. When you wake up tomorrow morning, Byung-chul said quietly, leaning in just enough that his next words reached Omari alone, though Kessia heard them too. Every account tied to your name will be frozen, pending investigation. Your employer will receive documentation of contract violations I've had my team researching since you opened your mouth. Your social circles will receive evidence of things you thought stayed private. He straightened. Or you apologize now and I merely ruin your reputation. Your choice. You have 10 seconds. Omari's face went from red to gray to white. His hands shook. His new fiancée had already backed away 3 steps, her phone conspicuously recording nothing now. Omari's voice broke.
I'm sorry.
Louder, Byung-chul said. And to her. Not to me. Omari turned to Kessia, and she saw it, the exact moment his world rewrote itself. When he realized he hadn't escaped his past. He'd merely failed to recognize her future. I'm sorry, he said louder this time. I was out of line.
I apologize.
Byung-chul didn't acknowledge the apology. He simply turned to Kessia, extending his hand. She took it. His fingers closed around hers, warm, steady, possessive, and he drew her carefully to his side. His other hand came to rest at the small of her back, protective without being confining. We're leaving, he said. The crowd parted like water. They walked toward the private elevator, Byung-chul's men forming a silent perimeter. Behind them, Kessia heard Omari's fiancé's voice, sharp and accusatory. Heard someone say, is that really his wife? Heard the frantic clicking of phones trying to identify who they'd just witnessed. The elevator doors closed on the chaos. Inside the mirrored silence, Byung-chul finally spoke again. You shouldn't have been alone. Kessia looked at their reflection. Her disheveled and shaking, him immaculate and calm. I didn't want to drag you into my past. His hand tightened slightly on hers. There is no part of your life that doesn't concern me. The words should have felt controlling. Instead, they felt like a vow. The elevator descended toward the private garage, and Kessia realized something. She'd called Byung-chul to save her from humiliation. She hadn't yet understood what he'd actually done. He'd declared war. The penthouse was exactly as Kessia remembered. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that cost more than most homes, and a silence so complete it felt like another room. Byung-chul hadn't spoken since the parking garage, hadn't asked questions, hadn't demanded explanations. He'd simply guided her to the car, instructed his driver with a single word, home, and then sat beside her in the dark leather interior, his hand still covering hers. Now, standing in the living room while he poured water she hadn't asked for, Kessia felt the weight of 3 months pressing against her chest. 3 months since she'd left. 3 months since she'd disappeared without explanation, leaving only a note that said, I need time. You changed the security code, she said quietly. I change it monthly. He brought her the glass, his fingers brushing hers during the exchange. But I kept your biometrics active. You could have come home any time. Home. The word landed differently than it had when they'd married. Their marriage hadn't looked like other marriages. No ceremony. No guests. Just paperwork signed in a lawyer's office on a Tuesday afternoon, witnessed by strangers who wouldn't remember their faces. Byung-chul had worn a black suit. She'd worn jeans. The entire process took 17 minutes. Why did you call me? He asked. Kessia's hand tightened around the glass. Because I was scared. Of him? Or of needing me? Both. The answer was always both. She'd met Byung-chul 11 months ago at a business conference she'd been catering. One of those corporate events where the wealthy pretended the serving staff didn't exist. Except he'd noticed her, had watched her navigate the room with the efficiency of someone who understood invisibility was a survival skill. And when a drunk executive had cornered her in the kitchen corridor, Byung-chul had appeared like gravity itself, his presence alone making the man apologize and disappear. You didn't flinch, he'd said afterward, studying her with those dark, calculating eyes. When he touched you, you went still instead. That's dangerous. So is talking to strangers in empty hallways, she'd replied. His mouth had almost smiled. I'm not a stranger. I'm the man who just saved you from filing a police report. I didn't need saving. No, he'd agreed. But you got it anyway. 3 weeks later, she'd learned what he really was. Not just wealthy, powerful. The kind of man whose name appeared in financial reports but never gossip columns, whose businesses operated in the space between legal and untouchable, whose reputation was built on 2 principles: absolute control and zero tolerance for betrayal. You should run, he'd told her the night he explained everything. Most people do. She hadn't run. She'd stayed. She'd married him. And then she'd left. I got pregnant, Kessia said now, setting the glass down. And I panicked. Because being with you was one thing. Bringing a child into your world was. You thought I'd use our child as leverage. His voice was flat, factual. I thought you'd trap me. Did I? She looked at him, then really looked. At the man who'd just destroyed her ex-boyfriend with 3 phone calls and a raised hand. The man who'd bought an entire mall to protect her. The man who'd kept her biometrics active for 3 months, waiting. No, she admitted. You let me go. I let you choose. Byung-chul crossed to where she stood, stopping just close enough that she felt his presence like heat. There's a difference. You're not my prisoner, Kessia. You never were. Then what am I? His hand came up, fingertips grazing her jaw with devastating gentleness. My wife. My choice. My reason for everything I do that makes no strategic sense. Her breath caught. Byung-chul, I knew you were pregnant, he interrupted softly. Before you left. You think I don't notice everything about you? The exhaustion, the nausea you tried to hide, the way you stopped drinking coffee. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I knew, and I let you leave anyway, because trapping you would have destroyed the only thing I actually want. Which is you, choosing me. The city glittered beyond the windows. 10 million lives, 10 million stories, and somehow theirs had collided in the space between violence and devotion. Kessia leaned into his touch. I'm sorry I left. Don't be sorry. His forehead came to rest against hers, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. Just don't leave again. She wanted to promise, wanted to say she'd stay forever, that she'd choose him every day, that they'd figure out how to raise a child in his dangerous world. But outside, the city held more than glittering lights. It held enemies, threats, men like Sungmin Park, who believed love was weakness and family was leverage. And promises, Kessia had learned, were just another kind of trap. There's something you need to know, Byung-chul said, pulling back slightly. Her heart sank. Here it comes, she thought. The war she'd been running from. The first notification arrived at 11:47 p.m. Kessia was standing by the window, watching the city lights blur through her exhaustion, when her phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Her sister's text appeared first. OMG, are you seeing this? Then a news alert. Breaking video of Eden Crown Galleria incident goes viral. She didn't want to look. Didn't want to watch herself be humiliated on repeat, dissected by strangers who'd turn her trauma into entertainment. But her thumb moved anyway, opening the video that had already been viewed 2.3 million times. Except it wasn't her humiliation trending. It was Omari's. The video had been edited with surgical precision. Every cruel word he'd spoken isolated and amplified, every threatening gesture highlighted in slow motion. Text overlays appeared. Man attacks pregnant woman in public. Wait for the ending. The comments section was an avalanche of outrage. Who does he think he is? Attacking a pregnant woman on Christmas Eve? Disgusting. The way he talked to her. This man is evil. By midnight, 3 more things had happened. Omari's employer, a boutique investment firm that valued reputation above everything, released a terse statement. After reviewing disturbing footage that surfaced tonight, we have terminated our relationship with Omari Ausmain, effective immediately. His behavior does not reflect our values. His fiancée posted a tearful video explaining she'd had no idea who he really was and was shocked and heartbroken. Screenshots appeared beneath her post. Messages Omari had sent to other women that same week, explicit and damning. Someone had leaked them. Someone with access to things that should have been private. And his credit cards started declining. All of them, simultaneously. Kessia watched the destruction unfold from Byung-chul's home office, her phone screen illuminating her face in the dark. He sat behind his desk, laptop open, making calls in Korean that she couldn't fully follow but whose tone she understood perfectly. Clinical, efficient, final. His accounts? She asked when he ended a call. Frozen pending investigation into financial irregularities I've had documented since this afternoon. Byung-chul didn't look up from his screen. The investigation will find nothing criminal. But by the time it concludes, his credit will be destroyed, His professional reputation will be unsalvageable, and every institution he's ever worked with will remember him as a liability. Kessia should have felt satisfied. Should have felt vindicated watching the man who'd tried to destroy her get precisely what he deserved. Instead, she felt hollow. "This doesn't feel like justice," she said quietly. "It feels like annihilation." "Good." Byung-chul finally looked at her. "Justice is a legal concept. This is a lesson. He attacked my wife in public. The consequence isn't proportional. It's preventative. So no one else gets the same idea. How long will you keep this up?" "As long as necessary." He closed the laptop. His employer will never rehire him. His social circle will never trust him. His financial recovery will take years if it happens at all. And every time someone searches his name for the rest of his life, they'll find tonight first. The words should have sounded cruel. Instead, they sounded inevitable, like gravity. Kessia's phone buzzed again. Another article. Another think piece. Pregnant woman's mystery husband reveals he OWNS the mall where she was attacked. The internet loved a reversal. Loved watching the arrogant fall. "He's trending," she murmured. "For now." Byung-chul stood, moving to where she sat. "By morning, he'll be forgotten. That's worse than being hated. Being irrelevant." She looked up at him. "Do you feel anything when you do this? When you destroy someone?" His expression didn't change. "I feel efficient." The answer should have scared her. Maybe it did. Maybe that's why her next question came out barely above a whisper. "Why did he do it?" "What do you mean?" "Omari's not brave. He's never been brave. So why would he attack me in public? In a crowded mall? With cameras everywhere." She stood, her hand instinctively cradling her belly. He had to know there'd be consequences. Byung-chul's jaw tightened. "You're right." "Then why?" "Because someone told him it would be fine." His voice went cold. "Someone convinced him you were unprotected. That I wasn't watching. That attacking you would expose my weakness, not his stupidity." The hollow feeling in Kessia's chest transformed into something sharper. Colder. "Sungmin Park," she breathed. Byung-chul nodded once. "Omari was a test. A probe to see how I'd react, how fast I'd move, what I'd sacrifice to protect you." He turned toward the window, the city sprawling below like a chessboard. "He didn't attack you for revenge, Kessia. He attacked you because someone paid him to." "Paid him with what?" "Hope. The most expensive currency there is." Outside, the city glittered with 10 million lights and one growing shadow. Omari's destruction wasn't victory. It was the opening move in a war Kessia had been trying to avoid for 3 months. And wars, she was learning, didn't care whether you were ready. Byung-chul opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a thin folder. Inside were photographs. Kessia recognized herself immediately, leaving her sister's apartment 3 weeks ago, buying groceries 2 months ago, walking through a park she'd visited once when she'd first left. Every image was time-stamped, every angle calculated. Professional surveillance that had tracked her movements for months. "How long?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Since you left." Byung-chul laid the photographs across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. "Sungmin Park put a tail on you the day after you disappeared. Not to hurt you, to study you, to understand what you meant to me. And what did he learn? That I didn't follow you, didn't force you back. Didn't do any of the things he would have done." Byung-chul's finger tapped one photograph. Kessia outside a clinic, her hand on her still flat belly. "He learned I was willing to let you go. That terrified him more than if I'd burned the city down looking for you." Kessia sank into the leather chair across from his desk. "I don't understand. Sungmin and I were partners once. 5 years ago, we controlled half the commercial real estate in 3 cities. We had rules, clear boundaries. No emotions, no complications. Business was business." He paused. "Then you happened. I'm not a complication. You're the only complication." His eyes met hers. "Sungmin watched me break every rule we ever made. I bought Eden Crown Galleria, a property with terrible profit margins, because you mentioned once that you liked their Christmas displays. I restructured my security protocols because you said the armed guards at the penthouse made you uncomfortable. I turned down a deal worth $40 million because the meeting conflicted with a dinner you'd planned. You never told me that. Because you would have felt guilty, would have left sooner. Byung-chul gathered the photographs, stacking them precisely. Sungmin noticed what you didn't, that I was making decisions based on something other than strategy. He saw weakness. So he's what, punishing you for having feelings? He's eliminating a liability. Byung-chul opened his laptop, turning it toward her. Security footage played, grainy but unmistakable. Omari Ausmain meeting with an older Korean man in a dimly lit restaurant. Money exchanged hands. A phone was passed across the table. That's Sungmin's nephew. 2 days before the Eden Crown incident. Kesia's stomach turned. Omari was paid to attack me. Omari was paid to provoke me, to see what I'd do when you were threatened publicly. Whether I'd stay hidden or expose myself. Whether I'd protect you quietly or declare you mine in front of witnesses. Byung-chul closed the laptop. I chose the latter, which told Sungmin exactly what he needed to know. That I'm your weakness. That you're my priority. The distinction felt paper-thin. Kesia stood, pacing to the window. Below, the city pulsed with oblivious life. People finishing their Christmas Eve celebrations, unaware that in this penthouse, war was being declared over a woman and her unborn child. What does he want? She asked. Everything I've built. The territory. The connections. The respect. Byung-chul joined her at the window, standing close enough that she felt his presence like gravity. But he can't take it directly. I'm too established. Too protected. So instead, he'll make me weak. Force me to choose between keeping you safe and maintaining my position. Then I should leave. The words tasted like ash. Go somewhere he can't find me. Remove the leverage.
No.
Byung-chul.
No.
He turned her to face him, his hands gentle but unyielding on her shoulders. You think leaving protects you? It makes you vulnerable. Out there, alone, you're an easy target. Here, with me, you're untouchable. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. Then understand this. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, intimate and terrifying. I already chose. The moment you called me today, I chose. When I walked into that mall with 6 men and declared you mine in front of hundreds of cameras, I chose. When I ruined Omari's life in 6 hours instead of 6 months, I chose. Chose what? You. Over territory. Over alliances. Over every strategic advantage I've spent a decade building. His forehead touched hers. Sungmin wants me weak? Fine. I'll show him what weakness looks like when it's armed with absolute devotion. Kesia's breath caught. This is insane. Yes. We could both die. Unlikely, but possible. His hands slid from her shoulders to cradle her face. I won't force you to stay. If you want to leave, I'll arrange protection so extensive Sungmin will never get within a mile of you. But if you stay, if you choose to stand beside me through what's coming, you need to understand the cost. Which is public, brutal, against a man who knows every one of my vulnerabilities because he helped me create most of them. Byung-chul's eyes searched hers. Can you live with that? Outside, Seoul glittered like a promise. Inside, Kesia felt the future narrowing into a single, impossible choice. Stay and become the center of a war she didn't start. Or leave and spend the rest of her life wondering if running made her safe, or just made her alone. She placed her hand over his. Tell me the truth. Can you win? His smile was cold, sharp, certain. I already have. Sungmin just doesn't know he's dead yet. The penthouse became a fortress overnight. New security panels appeared at every entrance. Bulletproof film coated the windows. 2 guards stationed themselves in the hallway outside, their presence constant and suffocating. Byung-chul's driver became her shadow. Every doctor's appointment, every trip to see her sister required advance notice and a 3-car escort. By the 3rd day, Kesia wanted to scream. I'm going to the pharmacy, she announced, grabbing her coat. Byung-chul looked up from his laptop. Jin-ho will drive you. It's 2 blocks away. Then it's a short drive. Byung-chul. Kessia. He closed the laptop with quiet finality. We've discussed this.
No.
You've decided this. She threw her coat back on the chair. I can't leave without an armed escort. Can't answer my door without clearance. Can't even order takeout without someone screening the delivery driver. I'm not your wife anymore. I'm your prisoner. His jaw tightened. You're my responsibility. I'm a person. A person Sungmin Park wants to use against me. He stood, crossing to where she stood trembling with frustration. You think I enjoy this? Watching you pace the penthouse like a caged animal? Seeing you flinch every time someone knocks? Then stop. I can't. The words came out raw, unguarded. I physically cannot risk you walking 2 blocks unprotected when there's a man out there waiting for exactly that opportunity. Kessia's anger faltered at the edge in his voice, something she rarely heard, something that sounded almost like fear. How long? She asked quietly. How long do we live like this? Until Sungmin makes his move, or until I make mine. And if neither happens? If this just continues? Byung-chul didn't answer, couldn't answer, because they both knew the truth. This wasn't sustainable. Eventually, something would break, the stalemate, the security, or them. That night, Kessia woke to find his side of the bed empty. She found him in his office, standing at the window with a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. The city sprawled below, indifferent to their war. Can't sleep? She asked from the doorway. You had a doctor's appointment today. Yes, everything's fine. She'd been going weekly now, monitoring the pregnancy complications that had started small and were growing less small. High blood pressure, early contractions, the kind of stress-induced symptoms that made her doctor frown and prescribe rest. Rest, as if that were possible. The baby's heartbeat was strong, she continued, moving into the room. Dr. Kim said. She said your blood pressure is dangerous. Byung-chul finally turned from the window. That if the stress continues, you could go into early labor. That both of you are at risk. Kessia stopped. She told you that? I have access to your medical records. I've had it since the day you got pregnant. He set down the untouched whiskey. Every appointment, every test result, every concern she's documented. She should have been angry about the invasion of privacy, should have felt violated. Instead, she saw what he was trying to hide. Terror, poorly masked and eating him alive. You're afraid, she said softly. I don't do afraid. Liar. His composure cracked. I have eliminated threats in 17 countries. I've negotiated with people who collect human organs as interest payments. I've survived 3 assassination attempts and turned each one into a strategic victory. He crossed to her, and she saw it then, the fracture in his armor. But I cannot strategize my way out of losing you, cannot negotiate with biology, cannot eliminate the risk that choosing me might cost you everything. Kessia reached for his hand, placing it on her belly where their daughter. They'd learned yesterday, in an appointment he'd apparently monitored remotely, was currently kicking. Feel that? She asked. She's fighting. We're both fighting. Not against you, with you. Kessia, I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being protected like I'm made of glass. Tired of watching you shoulder this war alone. She stepped closer, her free hand finding his chest. You asked me to choose. To stand beside you. So let me stand. Not behind guards. Not locked in this penthouse. Beside you. If something happens to you, then it happens. But at least we'll face it together. She could feel his heartbeat under her palm, rapid and unsteady. So unlike the controlled man the world saw. You can't protect me from everything, Byung-chul. You can only choose whether to face the danger alone or with me. His forehead came to rest against hers. I've never been afraid before. I know. It's unbearable. I know. She kissed him softly. Now imagine how I feel, watching you prepare for war while I'm trapped behind glass. He pulled back, studying her face in the dim light. Whatever he saw there, determination, exhaustion, love wrapped in steel, made his decision. If you stand beside me, he said carefully, you follow my lead in dangerous situations.
No arguments.
Agreed. You wear the protection I provide.
Fine.
And if I say run, I'll consider it. She smiled slightly. That's the best you're getting. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You're going to be the death of me. Or the life of you. She kissed him again. Your choice. Outside, the city held its breath. Inside, something shifted from fortress to partnership, from protection to alliance. Sungmin Park wanted to use her as leverage? Let him try. The package arrived at 6 a.m. Not to the penthouse. Sungmin was smarter than that. It came to Kesia's sister's apartment, hand-delivered by a courier who vanished before anyone could ask questions. Inside, a single photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph showed Kesia and her sister at a cafe 3 days ago. The angle suggested a rooftop position, a long lens, professional surveillance. But it was the note that made Kesia's blood run cold. Beautiful family. It would be tragic if something disrupted such a peaceful moment. The choice is yours to make. Convince him to step aside, or watch everything you love become collateral. You have 72 hours. SMP. Byung-chul read it once, twice, then set it down with terrifying calm. He made a mistake, he said quietly. What mistake? Kesia's hands shook. He just threatened my sister. He contacted you directly, gave you a deadline, showed me exactly how desperate he is. Byung-chul pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Sungmin operates through intermediaries. Always. The fact that he sent this himself means his network is fracturing. He's losing patience. Or he's escalating. Both. He made 3 calls in rapid Korean, each one shorter and more clipped than the last. When he finished, his expression had shifted into something Kesia had only glimpsed before, the man who existed before he'd learned to pretend at civility. What did you just do? She asked. Started a war he should have avoided. Within 6 hours, Sungmin Park's world began collapsing. His primary import business, luxury goods with conveniently flexible customs documentation, was raided by authorities who'd received anonymous tips about irregularities. His secondary holdings, a chain of high-end restaurants, failed health inspections they'd passed for years. His banking partners received documentation of financial structures that looked suspiciously like money laundering. None of it was coincidental. All of it was Byung-chul. You have people inside the government, Kesia said, watching him work from his home office. It wasn't a question. I have people everywhere. He didn't look up from his laptop. Judges, investigators, journalists. Sungmin built his empire assuming I'd fight him on criminal terms. He forgot I also control the legal ones. His phone rang. A conversation in Korean followed, terse, efficient, satisfied. When he hung up, something almost resembling a smile crossed his face. Sungmin just lost his shipping license. His inventory is trapped in customs. He'll hemorrhage money trying to recover it. How much money? Enough to make him desperate. Which is exactly what I want. Kesia stood, moving to look over his shoulder at the screen. Financial charts, shipping manifests, interconnected diagrams that looked like a spider's web of corruption. You're not just attacking him. You're dismantling everything he's built. He threatened you. Byung-chul's voice went cold. Did he think there wouldn't be consequences? By evening, the retaliation came. One of Byung-chul's warehouses burned. No casualties, evacuated 10 minutes before the fire started. Almost as if someone had called in a warning. The message was clear. I can hurt you too. Byung-chul watched the news coverage with clinical detachment. The warehouse was insured, barely profitable. He chose it because he thinks I value property over people. He turned to Kesia. He still doesn't understand what he's fighting. Which is a man who will burn every building he owns if it means keeping you safe. The words should have been romantic. Instead, they felt like a prophecy. That night, Kesia sat in on a meeting she wasn't supposed to witness. 6 men arrived at the penthouse, not the suited security detail, but something else. Something darker. They spoke in Korean, but their body language was universal. Soldiers awaiting orders. Byung-chul gave those orders with the efficiency of a general. Locations, targets, timetables. Nothing violent, he was too smart for that, but every instruction designed to pressure, isolate, and corner. You're mobilizing your entire network, Kessia said after they left. Yes. This isn't just business anymore. It never was. He poured 2 glasses of water, no alcohol, not while she was pregnant. Sungmin made it personal when he sent that photograph. Now he'll learn why people who know me don't make things personal. Kessia accepted the glass, her mind churning. How many people work for you? Directly? 43. Indirectly? Thousands. Most don't know my name. They just know that certain requests come with certain consequences for non-compliance. And they're all loyal to you? They're loyal to stability, to predictability, to knowing that if they follow the rules, they prosper. And if they break them, he trailed off. Didn't need to finish. You're not just powerful, Kessia said slowly. You're feared. Yes. Does that bother you? Byung-chul looked at her. Really looked. His dark eyes holding something between resignation and acceptance. It used to. Before you. Now I'm grateful for it. Because fear keeps you safe more effectively than love ever could. Outside, Seoul's nightscape glittered with oblivious beauty. Inside, Kessia felt the weight of what she'd chosen. Not just a husband, but a war. Not just love, but everything love cost when it collided with power. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 68 hours remaining. Choose wisely. She showed it to Byung-chul. He deleted it without responding. He's counting down, she said. Let him count. Byung-chul's hand covered hers. By the time he reaches 0, he'll have nothing left to threaten us with. Kessia wanted to believe him, but outside the city held its breath. And inside, she felt their daughter kick. A reminder that some countdowns couldn't be stopped by strategy alone. He's going to come after me directly. Kessia said it over breakfast, her tone matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather rather than an assassination attempt. Byung-chul's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. What makes you say that? Because I would. She set down her toast, her hand resting on her belly. He's losing ground. His businesses are collapsing. His timeline is ticking. He can't get to you, you're too protected. But me?
I'm pregnant, emotional, supposedly vulnerable.
I'm the easier target. You're not an easier target.
No.
But he thinks I am. She met his eyes. And that's his mistake. Byung-chul studied her for a long moment. What are you proposing? That we let him think he's winning. It took 2 days to set the trap. Kessia made herself visible, deliberately, carefully, but visibly. A doctor's appointment with reduced security. Lunch with her sister at a cafe with sightlines from 3 different rooftops. A shopping trip to a boutique that Sungmin's surveillance would easily track. Each movement was choreographed. Each vulnerability calculated. You're bait, her sister hissed during their lunch, her voice barely audible. You're 7 months pregnant and you're using yourself as bait. I'm protected, Kessia assured her, nodding toward the seemingly random diners scattered throughout the cafe. Byung-chul's people, every one of them. He just doesn't know it yet. The approach came on the 3rd day. Not Sungmin himself, he'd never risk that. Instead, a woman approached Kessia outside the boutique, well-dressed and professional, carrying a leather portfolio that looked corporate. Mrs. Kessia? The woman's smile was practiced. I represent an investment group interested in speaking with your husband. We've been unable to reach him directly. Perhaps you could facilitate an introduction. Kessia played it perfectly. Uncertain, flattered by the attention, eager to help. I can try. Do you have contact information? The woman handed her a business card. We're having a small gathering tomorrow evening. Very exclusive. Your husband's expertise would be invaluable. The address is on the card. She left before Kessia could respond. Back at the penthouse, Byung-chul examined the card with latex gloves. The address is one of Sungmin's properties. The investment group doesn't exist. So it's a trap. Obviously. He flipped the card over. But here's what's interesting, this card has a tracking chip embedded in it. They wanted to know if you'd bring it home. If you'd tell me. Kessia felt a chill. They're still watching. Always. Byung-chul pulled out his phone. Which means they're about to watch something very specific. What Sungmin's surveillance saw over the next 12 hours. Kessia and Byung-chul arguing. Visible through the penthouse windows. Their body language hostile. Her leaving with a suitcase. Getting into a car alone. Driving to her sister's apartment. Staying there overnight, apparently estranged, apparently vulnerable. What Sungmin's surveillance didn't see. The encrypted message Byung-chul sent to every business partner, criminal contact, and political ally in Sungmin's network. A message containing 3 things. Detailed financial records proving Sungmin had been skimming from joint ventures for years, surveillance footage of Sungmin meeting with federal investigators 3 months ago, and audio recordings suggesting he'd offered to testify against his own partners in exchange for immunity. All of it fabricated. All of it perfect. All of it designed to look like the evidence had come from Sungmin's own compromised servers. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. By morning, Sungmin's phone exploded with calls. Partners demanding explanations. Allies withdrawing support. Threats from people who'd been friends yesterday and were predators today. His network didn't just fracture, it turned on him. How long until he realizes the evidence is fake? Kessia asked, watching the chaos unfold through Byung-chul's monitoring systems. Doesn't matter. Byung-chul pulled up another screen. Financial transfers. Rapid and damning. His partners are already moving assets. Cutting ties. Even if he proves the evidence is fabricated, the damage is permanent. Trust, once broken in this world, doesn't heal. And the meeting tonight? Cancelled. The property's been seized by one of his former allies. Sungmin no longer controls it. Byung-chul finally looked at her. You were right. He underestimated you. Thought you were just the vulnerable wife. Didn't consider you might be the strategist. Kessia felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. What happens to him now? He runs. Or he begs. Those are his only options. Byung-chul closed his laptop. His money is frozen, his allies are gone, and his reputation is destroyed. In our world, that's worse than death. He's finished. The confirmation came that evening. A single message, delivered through an intermediary. I'm leaving the country. The woman and child are no longer my concern. We're done. No apology. No admission of defeat. Just retreat dressed up as choice. Byung-chul showed Kessia the message. It's over. She should have felt relieved. Should have celebrated the victory. Instead, she felt the baby kick. Hard, insistent, as if reminding her that some battles ended while others were just beginning. Is it really over? She asked quietly. Byung-chul was silent for a moment. With Sungmin? Yes. But there will be others. There are always others. Then we'll handle them too. He pulled her close, his hand covering hers on her belly. We will. Outside, Seoul returned to its usual rhythm. Oblivious to the war that had raged in its shadows, to the victory won without a single bullet fired, to the woman who'd turned her perceived weakness into the weapon that ended it. Inside, Kessia felt something shift. Not peace. Peace was a luxury they couldn't afford. But partnership. Survival. The knowledge that she wasn't just the wife of a powerful man. She was half of something more dangerous. A united front. And that, she was learning, was the most powerful weapon of all. 3 weeks after Sungmin Park fled the country, Kessia Rashid walked into Eden Crown Galleria for the first time since Christmas Eve. This time, she didn't walk alone. Byung-chul was beside her, his hand resting at the small of her back. Not possessive, but present. Protective without being suffocating. 2 of his men flanked them at a respectful distance, professional and unobtrusive. The mall had changed, or perhaps she had. People noticed them immediately. Whispers followed their path through the marble halls. Not cruel this time, but cautious. respectful, the kind of attention paid to people who'd proven they weren't to be underestimated. How does it feel? Byung-chul asked quietly. Being back here? Kessia looked up at the chandeliers, the Christmas decorations now replaced with New Year's gold and silver. Different. I'm not the woman who got humiliated here anymore. You never were. The world just needed time to catch up. They stopped at the exact spot where the ornaments had shattered. Someone had replaced the marble. She could see the slight color difference where new stone met old. Evidence that something had broken here. Evidence that it had been repaired. Do you regret it? She asked. What you did to Omari, to Sungmin, the war you fought because of me. Byung-chul turned to face her fully. I regret that it was necessary. I don't regret the outcome. And if it happens again, if someone else sees me as your weakness, then they'll learn the same lesson. His hand moved to cradle her face. You're not my weakness, Kessia. You're my line in the sand. The thing I protect because it's the only thing that matters. Around them, the mall continued its rhythm. Shoppers hunting bargains, teenagers laughing, life proceeding with oblivious normalcy. But in this bubble, this moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. I'm tired of hiding, Kessia said. Tired of being the secret wife. The woman no one knows about. Then don't be. Byung-chul's thumb traced her cheekbone. Stand beside me, publicly. Let the world see exactly who you are. And who am I? His smile was slight but genuine. The woman who brought a mafia boss to his knees. The strategist who ended a war without firing a shot. The person I chose over every alliance, every advantage, every safe option I had. Kessia felt tears threatening. Hormones, exhaustion, relief, love, all of it tangled together. You make it sound heroic. I was just trying to survive. Survival is heroic. Especially when you refuse to do it alone. They walked through the rest of the mall together, and Kessia noticed something. People moved aside for them. Not in fear, though there was some of that, but in recognition. They'd seen the videos, read the articles, watched Omari's public destruction and Sungmin's mysterious disappearance. They knew who Byung-chul was now, and more importantly, they knew who she was. His wife, his partner, the woman who'd turned vulnerability into victory. That night, back at the penthouse, Kessia found Byung-chul in the nursery they'd been preparing. He stood in front of the crib, white and elegant, already assembled, holding a tiny blanket with embroidered stars. I never thought I'd have this, he said without turning around. A nursery? A future. He set down the blanket carefully. A reason to build something beyond survival and strategy. Kessia joined him, her hand finding his. Are you scared? Terrified? He turned to her, and she saw it again. That crack in his armor that only she ever witnessed. I can protect you from external threats. From enemies and rivals and anyone who wants to use you against me. But I can't protect our daughter from what I am. From the world I'll bring her into. Then we protect her together. Kessia guided his hand to her belly, where their daughter was currently practicing what felt like martial arts. And we teach her to be strong, to be smart, to be someone who doesn't need protection because she knows how to protect herself. Like her mother, like both her parents. Byung-chul sank to his knees then, his forehead resting against Kessia's belly, his hands cradling the life they'd created in the midst of chaos and war and impossible choices. I promise you, he whispered to their daughter, his voice raw with emotion Kessia had never heard before. You will be safe, you will be loved, and anyone who tries to hurt you will learn why your father is feared across 3 countries. Kessia's fingers threaded through his hair. She'll also learn why her mother is the only person who ever made him kneel. He looked up at her, and something passed between them. Understanding, partnership, the knowledge that they'd chosen each other despite every logical reason not to. I love you, he said simply. I know. She pulled him to his feet. Now come to bed. Your daughter is using my ribs as a punching bag, and I need you to talk to her about respecting her mother. His laugh was quiet but real. Outside, Seoul glittered with possibility. A city that held both danger and promise, threats and opportunities, enemies and allies. The world hadn't changed. It was still brutal and unforgiving and full of people who would see their happiness as weakness. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. Byung-chul was still a man feared across criminal networks and corporate boardrooms. Still dangerous. Still calculating. Still someone who could destroy lives with 3 phone calls and a raised hand. But he was also hers. And she was his not as property or possession, but as partner and equal. The queen beside the king. The strategist behind the throne. The woman who'd proven that love wasn't weakness when it was armed with intelligence and wrapped in steel. Their daughter kicked again, insistent and strong. "She's going to be trouble," Kessia murmured. Byung-chul's hand covered hers on her belly. "She's ours. Of course she is." And somewhere in the night, in a city that never truly slept, their future waited, dangerous, uncertain, and entirely theirs to shape. Together. But every ending is just another beginning. And in the shadows of Seoul, new threats are always watching, waiting for their moment. The war with Sungmin Park may be over, but the real question remains. How long can love survive in a world built on power? The answer, Kessia and Byung-chul would soon discover, depends entirely on how far you're willing to go to protect it.